Very good. Well, thank you, Vega. And I do want to add my encouragement. If you've not been to a convention, if you are here today or watching this before June of 2022, be sure and make every effort to come. It is not only a time of good fellowship, but the information that is gathered, that you will learn during this, is invaluable. And for me, it was also one of the reasons to continue on. Um, Attending the convention just reinforced the, shall we say, the reality of all these teachings and the information. And you get to meet some of the characters, or I mean, the individuals within the Church of Light. And it's a lot of fun. So I really encourage you to participate. There are other classes that we have. Brian, is this your first time you've attended?
So, hi, thanks all. I popped in for a few minutes, one other session. I joined a few months ago based on, I kind of heard of the Church of Light through a podcast that I was watching, and it sounded intriguing. So I'm still looking to learn.
Great. Well, we all are looking to learn. I think that's the essence of this: is you never quit learning, you never achieve perfection in this. It's a matter of continual practice. So, Brian, welcome. And there are a variety of different classes that are being offered. And again, I'll refer you to the member section in the Church of Light, that the recordings for previous classes are there, and it covers everything from, gosh, astrology to tarot to a number of different topics, along with all these books. So I encourage everyone to take advantage of that information. And also, even though we don't say it, we encourage you to financially support as well. It just helps everything, because we're all here as a volunteer. One of the precepts of the Church of Light is that all the teachers do this without compensation. So we're here to give for the greater good. And so we do want the organization to prosper and appreciate your contributions in those areas. All right, so today what we're going to do is we're going to do book 15. Book 15 is a bit of a distraction, I think, is the best way to view it. People read this and they go, huh, what? And so we're going to go through this material and kind of lay it out. And what you'll find is that in this material, it is foundational. It does not give you really, and I guess the name's a bit of a misnomer, the true ability to predict, but to look at predict weather, but to look at changes in weather might be a better way to frame it. And to understand how to incorporate the information from the last, 70 years in terms of the impact of the sun and its impact on the weather, as well as just continual reinforcement of the electromagnetic nature of even how weather is dramatically influenced by that. So we'll go through that material, then we'll do our closing ceremony, then we'll have a time of question and answer. I encourage you, if you do have a question before we get to the Q&A, is put it into the chat box, and we'll try to pick that information up during this time. We go for about an hour. The idea here is not to replace your study of the materials. In many ways, I'm going to assume that you already have read the material, but to reinforce and try to give you how to apply this material in your life as you evolve into a hermetician. So let's begin. We do have a special guest today. Neil Cadwell's here. He is, I will say, as close to an expert in terms of this information, and he will probably vehemently deny that. But Neil, thank you for being here, and look forward to your input. So chapter 1, serial lesson 190. And again, look at when this was written, late 40s, early 50s. You're going to find that we've had advancements in weather technology, in understanding how the whole affects specific weather patterns. Everything from temperature, from, as I say, solar radiation, cosmic radiation, solar flares, impact of the various planets. All of that is being reinforced, and we continue to learn in these things. So again, encourage you to take this as not so much an end and a how-to course, but the beginnings of an approach. So Zane really divides understanding weather into three different areas. First is the impact of temperature, the impact of air movement, and the impact of precipitation. Now, the way that the material is going to be approached is that we're going to look at the astral influences primarily for significant change of direction. So not necessarily saying we're going to be able to understand and predict what the temperature is going to be on July 4th of 2023, but and just picking a random date, it's more to say we'll look at and to say, obviously, that there will be a change that will occur based upon certain patterns that we see emerge. The one thing that is also foundational with this is that you must have a significant and detailed knowledge of the weather patterns and circumstances for the location you're looking at. Without that, it is very difficult to make and to ascertain how things might change or in which direction things might change. So in essence, you're almost becoming a weather person, of recording everything from barometric pressure to temperature to wind to rainfall or snow, all of these different things that come. So that's just kind of the groundwork. The other thing that I would encourage you to do, as we've done with the other materials, is if you really want to pursue this, is to take another section of your divider, your 3-ring notebook, and devote it exclusively, if you will, to weather. Because there are attributes of the astral bodies that will relate directly to the way weather is understood. So keeping that, and also keeping a very good log then of observations, of astral influences, and of the various circumstances that appear. And please, please, please also include the solar impact, because as we found in the last probably 10 to 20 years, the impact of the sun has found to be greatly influential in weather. So you need to make 3 charts is the fundamental thing, is that you're going to create a chart for the period affecting temperature. So if you want to pick a date, or if you're looking at circumstances or developing circumstances, you have 3 different charts. One's going to be temperature, one's going to be air movement, and the second is going to be affecting precipitation of moisture. So the first thing you do is erection of a temperature chart for the location when the sun enters the movable signs of Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. These are found to be significantly influential. The second step is to erect affecting air, movement of the air, which is primarily, shall we say, governed by or influenced by Mercury when it enters a new sign by direct or a retrograde movement, because remember, Mercury moves in retrogrades as well. And so all of this is based upon not a natal chart per se, but on the way that everything is occurring in real time. The third is to direct an air movement chart when the sun is conjunct the sun, square, opposition, or square. The occurrence of all 3 events are indicative that there's going to be a change. Outside of those, can change happen? Absolutely, because again, we've not taken directly into account solar flares, coronal mass ejections, which have been occurring, CMEs, on the sun. But that information, when you add into it, is just another indicator. And the reason that's significant, we have found that the increase of these solar mass ejections intensifies storms. So if you see a CME occurring and there's the beginnings of a hurricane, it will add 1 or 2 significant intensities to it. So a level 1 hurricane may end up being a level 3 hurricane if it begins its formation or occurrence in building during these CME occurrences. Rules to consider. Major progressed aspects are not significant. We're dealing with transit here. Transit progressed aspects within 1 degree of the ascendant do have significance. And that's why I'm saying writing these rules down and keeping them in the notebook is very important. And you can say every aspect formed indicates some degree of weather variance. It's just a matter of whether that's significant or not. The way to determine that is by also looking at the associated astrodynes that are, whether they're positive, negative, or how strong it is. Just because something occurs doesn't mean it's necessarily significant unless it has a lot of power behind it. Every planet is considered important, but the sun and Mars have more important or impact than Venus and Mercury. So also you must be familiar with the local weather conditions in the area to really understand what is the norm. And that's the information given, all this on page 18. This is involving a great dedication of time and comprehension. Some people really enjoy it. Some people really find a great deal of meaning because, especially if you are very methodical, you will find this to be just another aspect of understanding the environment around us. Neil, do you have anything to say at this point?
You have to unmute. Okay.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah, just to add the fact that you do have to understand your local weather, because the variance that the charts show are going to be a variance to what's already there or what's normal climatic data for that area. So a chart that's going to show lots of rain in the desert where you hardly ever get any is going to be a little bit off. So you do have to pay attention to that. The big thing about the inner weather is that Alan's right, there's a big impact there. And these charts really show what that is. Other than that, I don't have anything more to add.
Okay. If you have your materials, I'm going to encourage you to, in the green book anyway, turn to page 19. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs that begin with the word certain. So I'm going to read those because they are significant in terms of adding this to that section of your notebook. Certain signs are dry and other signs are wet. Certain planets are dry and certain planets are wet. When wet influences occur in the season temperature chart or the moisture chart in those positions that have an influence over the weather, it says he or she, they may know that weather which is wetter than the normal for the season is at hand. Now, interestingly enough, he doesn't tell you which ones. The next paragraph, certain signs and certain planets are hot and other signs and planets are cold. When hot planets and hot signs are in the position of the temperature chart for the season that affect the weather, they know that it's going to be a season hotter than normal. The next one, certain signs and planet are windy and certain are calm. And again, when those are positioned. Certain planets are violent and certain aspects are violent. And when they are violent planets making violent aspects to each other in the sky, there is always violent weather on the Earth. This is why you're looking at a chart that is specific for a place and time. And when you see those types of occurrences happen. But he gives us a hint. In the next paragraph, it says, if the chief afflicting planet is Saturn, it may be a freeze, a flood, a blizzard, or a drought, but it will be destructive. If Uranus is the chief afflicting planet, electrical disturbances, or at least some sudden violence may be expected. If Neptune is the chief affecting planet, the weather will be quite out of the ordinary. Thus, each planet has its own significance where weather is concerned. And if a storm is indicated, it will break when there is a characteristic aspect to the ascendant on the weather chart. So as you can see, he's given you a lot of clues, but not a lot of facts. So you need to start building based upon your locale or the locale that you're focusing on, specifics that are going to be brought. Chapter 2 gives us some additional information on looking at specific charts. So on page 27 and 28, we see the summary of each of the 3 charts, specific house considerations, and then on 29 through 39, influences of planets on the weather. Now, translating these or transposing these into your own material and the way that you understand it will help reinforce it. So for instance, in terms of the houses, on page 27, the 4th house of any weather chart or mundane chart is the house having chief rule over the weather. So the 4th house is significant. We find that 1/2 of the total weather influence of any of the 3 types of weather charts should be judged by the 4th house. And given the 1st house, we find that 1/4 of the total weather influence of one of these weather charts should be judged by the 1st house. Any planet in the 1st house and aspects it makes are the most important. So the 1st house and the 4th house both have significance. For the planet in which the chart is erected, we find that 1/8 of the total weather influence of these types of charts should be judged from the planet which the chart is erected. Now, using the computer program, we actually see this interpreted in the astrodynes. So you don't have to necessarily figure this out, but it's good to know how it's calculated to make sure that you understand and you're not taken by surprise. So when you see any type of house, any type of planet, or any type of sign that is very strong in any of either of each of these 3 charts, you want to take note and make sure you understand. And again, to reinforce in terms of storms, that all 3 of these charts have to have significant occurrences. When all 3 are in alignment for significance, something's going to be happening. Then on page 29 through 39, we actually get into the impact of each of the astral bodies. So the impact of the moon, which tends to give breezes. Moon is the wettest of all planets. So make note of that. If we look at Mercury, its influence is cold. Now, that almost seems not logical since Mercury is the closest planet to the sun, and it is a planet of extremes. The side facing the sun, which always does, is extremely hot, enough to melt lead, but the backside never sees the surface of the sun, so it is extremely cold. Ooh, are the slides clear now? Vega? Said they're fuzzy.
They were for a couple of them, but now it's great. Thank you.
Interesting. Okay, just want to make sure. Venus is a moderating influence. It is not strongly indicating severity or calmness. It's kind of in the middle. Mars is a hot planet. Jupiter is warm. Saturn, of course, is going to be the storm planet because it is the stern planet. Where temperature is concerned and the influence is toward cold, interestingly enough. And many believe in terms of looking at astrophysics is that Saturn and Jupiter both were failed suns that did not develop, the gaseous planet. Whether they have hard cores or not is still debated, but yet they are extremely cold. Uranus is consistently cold, but it's also very electrical. And when you see Uranus having an influence in a location which Uranus is coming in to actually conjunct with the time that the United States was founded, you'll see a time of high electrical occurrences. And we may see some events associated with that will occur. Neptune is a particular planet with effect on the weather. Freak weather of all kinds comes under its influence. Pluto is upon cold Neptune rather than extreme cold brought by Saturn, Uranus, and Pluto, however, is decidedly a violent planet. So let's look at the signs starting on page 34. And you, again, need to write these within your book to make sure that you understand, and when you look at a chart, that you can thoroughly analyze it and understand which of the signs have the greatest impact and for that particular chart and why. Neil, any comments on chapter 2 in terms of the specifics about the signs, the planets, and the information that's indicated?
On the temperature chart, because the temperature chart rules both the air movement and the moisture charts, you do have to pay attention to all three when looking at the temperature. Look at the temperature, the air according to the temperature, the moisture according to the temperature, and that determines if there's going to be any storms that might be coming along that might also show up in the air movement and the moisture chart too. So give particular attention to the temperature for all three charts before going on to the individual ones. Otherwise, it's got it all clear right there.
And you know, it's really interesting because right now we are seeing increasing warm events on the planet, particularly in the Northern Hemisphere. However, because of this, it also is usually a precursor to a very large change that occurs. Each of the ice ages were preceded by a increasing temperature until such times that the ocean currents were reduced because of the ice melt on the polar regions, reducing the salinity and causing the currents to extremely slow or to actually stop, and then that inducing a very cold snap. So we may actually see the beginnings in the not too distant future of an ice age occurring that these charts will actually show an indication of. That's just something to tease you with that may be in the future. How far in the future? You'll have to draw your own conclusions to this. Chapter 3, use the computer program. If you don't have the computer program, it is one that is specifically written to be able to cover astrodynes in the way that we construct charts. While other great programs are out there, this is a more modestly affordable program. And again, it develops based upon our understanding of astrodynes and the relationships and the influences of both power and of positive and negative influences. So the best way to learn this, if this is something that you're really interested in, is take his examples starting on page 48 through 56 in the 3rd chapter and reconstruct those charts and examine what occurred. Now, the time commitment to this is not insignificant. If you're studying for the hermetician, this is something I would do once you've finished. But if understanding of weather is important to you, this is a homework project to do after you've completed the information and really to help you better understand. Because until you can recreate those elements that he talks about and follow along with his explanation, it is very hard to apply to something that otherwise may seem to be just a standard mundane chart that you're looking at, a transit chart at a specific time and place, and saying, okay, I look at all these rules, I look at all these occurrences, and yet I don't have a good way of interpreting them. Follow along and recreate those, and you will find a great deal of information will occur. Chapter 4, note the caveat on page 67. The chart is not absolute and only indicates variance from normal air movement and when they will occur, not whether it will go up or will go down, we're looking for transitions. And so air movement are of particular interest. And so recreating those charts from page 69 to 84, again, provides a great deal of insight that I know of no other way to do that. Neil, is there another way that you can gain this experience short of recreating those charts that he lays out?
No, not really. But you can go further than that experience too. You can start today making charts for tomorrow or the next day, or I'm sorry, the next season or whatever, and put your notes down for them and see how they come out. It's the same way as looking at the back charts that Zane's already provided and doing them there. Both will work. I'm a big believer in doing it for the future for yourself and learning for yourself rather than taking Zane's charts as the preemptive way of doing it. Both are great. I just recommend do it for your own future use better.
Neil, what would you think then if you were going to look into the future of looking at that time of those four occurrences of when the sun moves into the movable? So
any one of those charts, just go 2, 3, or 4 weeks ahead of time. Make up the necessary charts that you need for that season and see what you come up with 2 or 3 weeks ahead of time, and then see how they come out. Then go back and see what you missed. Why didn't it turn out the way it did, and see what you missed there? Or if it turned out perfectly, note what exactly did you find that did make it turn out perfectly.
You know, one of the things that I found, and Neil, maybe I'm crazy, maybe I'm just reading something that isn't there, but I found that Zane's methodology seems pretty close, at least in terms of the way that he's interpreting things, to the Old Farmer's Almanac.
Yes, it is. In fact, the Old Farmer's Almanac, I think, took a lot of Zane's methods. But yeah, they are very similar. I've watched the Farmer's Almanac for years, and I don't know who's actually doing them now, but they are similar, and they give general occurrences of weather. They don't give specifics.
No.
It's all big general areas. But with Zane's, you can get down and get specific to a very close area, what we would call a mesoscale or a microscale area, somewhere within a 50 to 100 mile radius of your position, or any position that you want to predict for.
And just remember that as you move to coastal regions, as you move to certain geological major things like the mountains, it sometimes will skew things.
Yes. Yeah, you've got sea breezes on coastal regions, which change things. And the mountain winds, they will change things. Believe it or not, the mountains have a lot to do with weird and Uranian type weather. A lot of thunderstorms are occurred because of mountain air and mountain temperatures coming down from there.
I lived in Flagstaff for, gosh, 2 years, a little more than 2 years. I literally saw storms circle around Mount Eldon. And it would just literally go around, and you would have thunder snow in the winter with thunder and lightning and snow. So mountain type weather can be very extreme and also be very unpredictable in terms of winds and everything else. So, and that's the same way in the coastal area. Living in San Diego for almost 20 years, at San Diego area, being right off the coast, the weather could change in a heartbeat, and they had terrible time predicting weather there. And chapter 5. The temperature and moisture charts only indicate variations from normal, not the specifics that we said on page 89. So recreate several of the examples of charts to walk through and see the progress. Or, as Neil suggested, take some time, pick some dates, maybe a vacation, maybe an indication of kind of where you're going, or for your local area, and then become a good cataloger and recorder and understand and collect this information in a logical sequential way. If you have now these wireless weather stations are just right at $100 in 2022 for a very nice one. And what you can do with that is have accurate information for specifically where you are. Because again, remember the national or even what they consider local weather reports may be different than where you are. I'm approximately 27 miles north of San Antonio proper, from downtown San Antonio, where the most of weather forecasts occur. I'm in what's called the hill country. Well, I'm actually higher in elevation, and there is a significant difference in terms of temperature, sometimes 5, 7 to 10 degrees in terms of variance between downtown San Antonio and up in the hill country where I am. So you need, like Neil said, and to work through your specific geographic location. I found that chapter 7 to be some of the most interesting because of the increase in intensity that we're seeing in terms of number of occurrences, as well as intensity of tornadoes and to hurricanes. As you see these types of events occurring near or around you, you have a perfect opportunity to watch and to recreate charts accordingly. The other thing I would encourage you to do is to add in the solar effect. So if there have been solar flares, if there have been coronal mass ejections that have occurred, you can find this at spaceweathernews.com. All that information, including daily predictions and forecasts in terms of space weather. One of the things that also is occurring right now is a weakening of the Earth's magnetic electrical field that has protected us from cosmic radiation. This is a cyclical type of event that occurs from 6 to 12,000 years, and we are in a weakening. We're also seeing that the magnetic poles are moving. No longer is the South Pole, magnetic south, located on the Antarctic continent. It has moved out into the ocean. And the North Pole is moving very rapidly, almost 1 degree a year, and then the rate of move is accelerating. It is projected with this rate of acceleration that we will see a convergence, or that we will see, if you will, a move of where the magnetic North Pole will be somewhere north of the equator in the not too distant future. If this occurs, it has serious implications in terms of overall effects on the weather, as well as in terms of precipitation. As you may have read and know, dinosaurs were found, or various creatures of those eras. Mastodons, for instance, were found in the Arctic region that still had food in their stomach, and they were flash frozen. So when these events occur, they will occur very rapidly. And this could be additional information for an early warning sign. Chapter 6, unusual weather. So follow the order: temperature and charts and noted dates of variance, air movement charts and notes of dates of variance, moisture charts for dates when precipitation will occur. And then by adding them all together, you start having an understanding of intensity. Note the position of the ascendant and the slow-moving planets, especially on page 111, the impact of Uranus. It is a disruptor, both electrically as well as other impact. And try to examine the examples given and combining that then, as Neil points out, with your own experience and the understanding you come to by applying the rules that he gives us that we had in chapter 2. Make note of those, apply them, understand them. Neil, what other comments do you have on this?
Well, based on my own experience, doing Zane's charts the way he set them up, and going back and looking at how everything fell in line with the astronomical data that he gave, was very enlightening. However, there were too many questions that were left. too much weather that was not given by him. He was just showing what occurred in years past from his time. And that's why I recommend doing it yourself and going ahead in the future, because you're going to be able to see things in those 3 charts and how those planets affect it for the life of your charts there. It's a self-learning process that I think gives you a better insight, better understanding than just going back to Zane's to see how they enveloped from the past. Having a tough time with figuring my words here, but maybe you get the picture.
And I totally agree and appreciate those comments. It is something, then this book is probably more representative of this than any others. Unless you put in the work here, it is not a formula. Many of his items are formula. Do this, do this, do this. This is not. This requires a great deal of collection of information and analysis of information. And then you will learn by trial and error. By applying the general rules, you will come for the specific area you're looking at and be able to interpret it in context.
I agree fully.
And that's the hardest thing for some people, because, you know, book 15, you read through that and you say, oh, this is not that much stuff. Well, no, it isn't in terms of the material, but in terms of being good at it, it's probably a lifetime of study and of understanding. And again, interpreting and adding in the solar impact of this just adds a whole nother dimension, and I believe increases the accuracy. All right, I would like to say that there's more material, but this is it. This is the shortest amount of material, but the shortest book in terms of content that we have in our collection. Why he separated this out, I have no idea. It is interesting, but in terms of being a potential distractor for now, if you're progressing through all the books to obtain your hermetician certificate, wait until you're done and then come back to this, because otherwise it will just kind of distract you from all the different materials that we'll be going through. Our pace accelerates here. We're well over halfway through. We will be getting into more esoteric themes in the remainders of these books. We will be talking about the next life and what our understanding of this is and how it impacts us as individuals and how we're to prepare for it and the steps that we can take in terms of building not only the outer world, but the inner world and its influences, so that as we prepare for our transition, that we're able to essentially pick up where we left off and move on. Let's go ahead and do the closing ceremony and then get into questions and answers. Probably more questions than answers. So I will go ahead and read that and we'll go from there. Eternal brethren, we are now about to close the Church of Light meeting in the customary manner. And in doing so, let us consider seriously the kind of life it is fitting for a brother or sister of the light should live. We must each leave this meeting to go out into our daily duties, but unless we take with us some higher thought and nobler purpose, we have spent our time here in vain. For knowledge lacking goodness leads to naught but self-undoing. Each brother and sister has pledged himself or herself to put forth an effort to alleviate physical and mental suffering, to dispel ignorance, and to spread truth. Therefore, even as we would be helped by those of our religion who are more enlightened, let us make every effort to assist others. And let us each so conduct himself or herself as to be an example of moral purity, radiating life, light, and love upon the world of his endeavors or her endeavors. As has been the custom in eons past, let us arise or remain seated and face the west, wherein at the close of day of the solar orb softly sinks to rest and relinquish his sovereignty to his heavenly consort. And let us bear in mind that even as the orb of night reflects the glory of the sun, when darkness should shroud the earth, so should each earnest brother and sister reflect the radiance of our teachings, even amidst the darkness of ignorance, lighting somewhat the most obscure as well as the most luminous paths, which they are forced to tread. The lunar mother is symbolized in the minds of our ancient brethren as sustaining nature, upon whose breast we lean, and from whom we draw such experiences and nourish and expand our immortal soul. Now let's make the sign of the religion of the stars. We stand or as we sit to indicate active volition with a right hand raised to heaven and aspiration to science and wisdom and power, and the left hand pointing to earth, signifying the desire to reflect the divine will, and invents an unconquerable determination to dominate all acts of the life by the Spirit. You may now lower your hands and I will pronounce the benediction. O thou eternal Spirit, in whom we live, move, breathe, and have our being, dismiss us now with thy blessings. And as we travel along our several ways, let ministers of thine guard our footsteps and light our pathway, that we may not stumble in our blindness. From our hearts, we thank those who have assisted in our researches. And now, as we depart, we consecrate our efforts to the cause of truth and benevolence. So shall it be. Okay, you want to stop the recording?